Welcome to Secular Soapbox. I'm your host, Apostasy. Tonight we are joined by Dr. Kipp Davis, Captain Deadpool, and David McDonald. We are going to dive into the discussion of early Christianity. Don't forget to like the stream, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Let's start the show. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I saw that in the little picture thing and it freaked me out.
Oh,
Is
the
that who
girl's
I
a pet
think it is?
there.
Who is that?
I didn't know.
That's-
Should I know?
Yes, that's Dr. Fuck, what's his name now? Ah.
Well, there goes our
I
7 minutes.
already apologized.
He
The
has
theology
amazing
of
breasts.
size guy.
He has amazing breasts. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
phew,
All
lovely
right.
titties. That guy.
I need to get one of those.
Well, this started off so different than what I expected.
That was
Oh
fun.
no!
Oh no!
That's fun. I like it. Well, I have intros for people who everyone should know who you wonderful gentlemen are, but I'd like to introduce Dr. Kipp Davis. Thank you for being here. Dr. Kipp Davis is a renowned scholar specializing in Dead Sea Scrolls research with expertise in ancient manuscripts and biblical studies. He has made significant contributions to our understanding of these valuable historical artifacts. His analysis and insightful interpretations have shed light on the cultural and religious context of the ancient Near East. So thank you so much for being here once again for this discussion.
So great to be here. Hi everyone.
Just quickly, Stacey. I think your
Okay.
audio is a little crackly.
Is
Yeah.
it? Oh,
Yeah.
Do you know what I think it is? Because
What?
the video played and then that's when it happened. I think you need to reconnect when it does that.
It's
because
Dr.
that's what
Kipp's
happens with my
sparkling
headphones.
personality. That's what it is.
Yeah, I thought or it could be
What-
that. It could be.
I think
what
it's
do you
that.
But
mean
if you-
reconnect?
Yeah.
So if you just change where your headphones, I guess, are coming
Dr.
from.
Kipp, if you could just tone it down a little bit.
It's through here.
Oh, okay. Can you turn it off and
David
on
Falk.
quickly?
That's his name.
Like it's
Dr.
a
David
robot.
Falk.
Let's pray about it.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. Is that better?
No.
I don't. Oh crap! This
No,
seems
it's
to
even,
happen.
it's even
with me.
worse now, actually.
Yeah. Mm.
Okay.
I'm kidding. You're fine.
Oh dear.
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
It's all right. We can.
You guys start.
Well, we start.
I have
Okay.
intros. Okay. Go ahead.
We can we can just chat amongst ourselves while you do that.
Well,
Um,
you fix it, or
Mm-hmm.
we could introduce each other.
There you go.
I can. So
Could do
the
that.
gentleman to my right, or is it
yeah,
left?
here we go. This is
There.
good. I like
that-
this.
No, that guy. This guy here is
I like this.
David McDonald, who runs a podcast. He is
I don't
David
like that.
McDonald is a world-renowned day drinker who runs a podcast called Deep Drinks Podcast, where he has on very interesting people, and they all get drunk together while they talk about everything from religion to what else do you talk about?
Philosophies and
Philosophy, yes, that and
deconstructionism.
that too, and purity culture. I've seen a few of those.
Yep.
And porn. He's had porn stars on his channel, and
Yes.
Several porn stars.
Yeah.
Lots
So-
of porn stars. He's well
is way-
connected in the porn
better.
star industry.
it's a hell of a show. So, like, I think
I will
think
say-
Stacey's audio is better now, isn't it? Did I?
Is it better?
Yeah, it
Yes.
is better.
Yeah.
But
So
Oh.
please save us.
No, I loved
Well,
your
I
intro.
do-
That was way better.
I have to.
No.
Can I just before we do proper introductions, I just need to say that Deep Drinks is amazing. But part of the reason it's amazing is because one of the episodes, Captain Deadpool came on and did How long was it? Was like 4 hours or
and
something.
40 minutes.
3
3
hours and 40
hours
minutes.
and 45 minutes. Yeah.
Holy shit. So first of all, I was blown away. Like I still have to go back and like rewatch that. That was just so I was
And
not
like
expecting.
before the stream, you were like, let's do like 90 minutes.
Yeah, 'cause I had to go to work.
And I was like, I'm sorry. I had all this stuff.
Oh,
put
but it was
together.
so good. So I'll
I got a lot of
just
positive
introduce
feedback. So
just to introduce Ricky.
Yeah, you do that because I introduced Kipp. Kipp introduces you. You introduce Ricky.
I know what I
Weird
know.
stuff
What
that's
my expectations of Captain Deadpool were like, oh yeah, cool guy. Like he, like he makes content about the Bible and atheism and stuff like that. And then he came on Deep Drinks, and I was like, oh shit, this guy knows a lot of stuff. So he has.
I'm more than
do
just
a lot of
pretty
work.
face.
More than just preface, amazing TikTok, amazing YouTube. You have so much like you were showing me your notes. You have just like lists and lists and lists of like theology that you like dive
Oh,
into.
dude, that was just a fraction.
I
had to shave down so much to get.
It was it's
Write a book, Captain Deadpool.
Yeah, that's right. I think you should.
I might be kind of maybe working on some kind of book-ish thing. I don't know where it's gonna, maybe one day.
Awesome. Sweet.
I have a
amazing.
ton of information. I have a ton of notes and a ton of resources in various files in Google Docs. I just need to like organize them and put them together, and maybe and that could potentially be a book one day. But right now, it's just like, yeah. Anyway,
there we go. Okay. Well, thank you guys for
Okay.
doing the intros. That was awesome. And sorry yours was crackly, Dr. Kipp.
No,
so
it's all good.
to start the show or to start the questions off in the discussion, might as well just get to the basics. So like from what we know, what would be some of the historical evidences for the existence of Jesus of Nazareth? Who wants to go first?
Oh boy.
So maybe I'll start by saying that I think before you begin discussions of a topic like the existence of Jesus of Nazareth, bring your expectations down a notch. So, and not just because there is the evidence is not very extensive, but also because this is not surprising. Jesus, the historical Jesus of Nazareth, was not, in fact, very much like the Jesus that we know from the Gospels. The Jesus we know from the Gospels is a narrative theological construction on the basis of this historical figure who was an apocalyptic leader, charismatic prophet of some sort, who hailed from the region of Galilee and got himself executed in Jerusalem. So because of who he was, there's not very much actual good historical evidence for him, like for 99.9% of people from his social station in the region. So it's actually quite remarkable that we have as much as we do for Jesus of Nazareth. And what we do have is some information provided to us by the Apostle Paul in a couple of his letters that he wrote to churches, Galatians and I think Thessalonians. Help me out, Captain Deadpool, who reads the New Testament more than I do.
Galatians 3,
and then also some reliable, I think reliable information in Josephus, who was a Jewish the Jewish historian, I guess, who was writing for his Roman patrons, the Flavian emperors, and he wrote around between 90 and 100, I believe, and includes a couple of tidbits which strongly, I would say, which suggest that there was a real guy who
Right.
led a real movement and who actually got executed as a result of it.
That makes me wonder, like, why. I'm just kind of jumping ahead, but like, why would Paul latch on to this particular person or character? Is there any evidence or reasoning for why he would
Well,
do that?
Now I've got no scholarly background. I did ministry college, like Cert 4, but I've always, and I'd love to hear everyone's feedback, but I've always thought of. So I had a spiritual experience. I had this,
Okay, you and I we're more on the same page for sure.
Yeah.
Spiritual
There's a divide in this. In this thing.
It's perfect.
We're on the left-hand path or the right-hand path. But but you know, I had a spiritual experience, and I was convinced that I experienced a certain thing. The story goes that Paul saw this flash of light and attributed it to Jesus, and while he was persecuting Christians, which makes sense. Like, you're persecuting a group of people, you're a heavily religious person, and you see a flash of light, and then your brain makes up this story that, you know, that it's Jesus and everything like that. Which maybe is that Jesus' second coming, because he had to have returned. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, I'm convinced that he actually did believe that he experienced some sort of spiritual thing with Jesus and himself. But I'd like to know everyone else's perspective on that.
Yeah, I'll say the that flash of light is only accounted for in Acts. In Paul's own writings, it just says he had a vision. He in Paul's accounts, he doesn't go blind. There's no like scales that form over his eyes. He's not blinded. He doesn't fall off of a horse. There was no people with him when he saw this light. Like, that's all in Acts. In Paul's own accounts, he just says, yeah, I had a vision of Jesus. That's literally it. That's all he says.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's lying. I think Paul genuinely experienced something that he couldn't explain. There have been several theories, like maybe he was epileptic or something that have, you know, floated around scholarly circles, but ultimately you can't diagnose a first century experience that somebody had. So there's only theories. But I don't think Paul, there's a lot of people who are like, Paul was a total fraud. Like, I don't think he was a fraud per se. I think he genuinely experienced something that he couldn't explain. And giving his Hellenistic background as a Pharisee, as a Hellenized Pharisee, that was someone who was well-versed in Greek mythology and Greek literature. I think that he experienced something, and that's how he explained what he experienced through his education, or through what he knew about ancient philosophies. It's like, oh, there's these Christians that I've been persecuting, which is another thing. In the book of Acts, I actually asked Bart Ehrman this when I interviewed him. I was like, in Acts, he's like, yeah, I like recommended them for execution and stuff like that. And I was like, he's a Pharisee. He didn't have the authority to do that. Like you read Pliny the Younger, who's like doing that. He's a Roman governor, and he's doing so with the permission of the emperor. Like, so like how is a Pharisee able to just recommend people for execution? So like Bart Ehrman was like, yeah, no, he would not have had the authority to do that. So, and then you go, and I was like, cool, interesting. Go back and look in Paul's own accounts. He's just like, I persecuted the Christian. He doesn't give any details as to how he did that. Just says, yeah, I didn't like them. And then you go to Acts. In Acts, he's like, yeah, I was killing them. Like, really? How? That doesn't make sense. You can't just be like, go ahead, Dr. Kipp.
No, I was going to say, you're right. It makes absolutely no sense. And what people, I think, often fail to understand on a few points here I would say the same holds for Jesus as it does for the first Christians, or the Jerusalem church, which is where Christianity began. Jesus was not executed by the Jews,
Right.
because he did not violate Jewish law. And if you don't violate Jewish law, they're not going to kill you. Same with
But haven't you seen the
first
Passion?
Christians.
Dr. Kill, haven't you seen the Passion?
Yeah,
They tore
I
their
have.
clothes and everything.
Okay. It's true.
Totally
But the same holds for the Christians, which is why the story about Paul in Acts just simply does not ring true. Because the first Christians were, and unfortunately we know very, very little about these people, because they left us nothing in terms of any written records. We only know of them through Paul, and what we know about them through Paul is part of the movement, but also has major disagreements with, the members of the Jerusalem church, the people who are, the established, the OG Christians in Jerusalem, right? So, but these people were, I would say, based on what Paul tells us about them, it seems like these people, the earliest stages of this movement, were much more Jewish than they were like than Gentile, or even like what the Christian church looked like in the 2nd century, like 100 years later, when it became much more a Greco-Roman religion. And there's a good reason for that as well, that we can get into. But yeah.
Am I lagging? I'm sorry.
No, you're
Is it
I
okay?
think you're good.
Okay, good. Okay. I just feel like I'm having tech issues and I don't have a co-host to kind of bounce off of. Like, oh, should I? So I just feel very So speaking of persecution, so what role did persecution play in the development and spread of early Christianity?
Oh boy,
that's a good question.
So there is a fantastic book called "The Myth of Persecution" by Candida Moss.
Oh, I think you've recommended that book before.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Okay.
And basically, the idea about the early Christians being persecuted is almost entirely made up.
Okay.
And exaggerated. There were some that were persecuted, but not for being Christian. In 1st century Rome at the time was pantheistic. They didn't really care what god you worshipped. You could worship whatever god you wanted, but you had to also worship the Roman gods in tandem. So when Pliny the Younger captured Christians and interrogated them and tortured them, and he was like, you can I'll free you if you just offer a sacrifice of grain to the Roman gods. And presumably a lot of them did. But then you get to
I was going to say, this is something that Paul actually addresses in his letters, right? Is the what you're supposed to do with food that's sacrificed to other gods. How much can we participate in the wider cultic world? Continue, Ricky.
And then in Pliny the Younger talks about when Nero burned the Rome, or there was a great fire in Rome in the 70s, or the year 70-ish. And Nero blamed that on the Christians. He didn't charge them for being Christians. He charged them with arson.
Okay.
So it's like he didn't, and even this story is questionable historically. But even if you grant it, it's like the emperor blamed the Christians for this thing, which honestly seemed to be like an accident that got out of hand. And he was just like, the Christians did it. But he didn't charge them for being Christian. He charged them for arson. So he's like, and he punished them. Like he threw them in the Colosseums to be mauled by animals. He hung them up on stakes and lit them on fire to illuminate his gardens. Like there's all these accounts of
That's
this.
what I heard, is that he
Yeah.
my understanding was that he lit Christians on fire like they were candles to light his parties.
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
But he didn't
That's
do it
his Christian
because they were
spin.
Christians. He
Right.
didn't do it because they were worshiping Jesus. He did it because because he wasn't because he was charging with arson.
Okay.
It had nothing to do with what God they were worshipped, or what God they're worshiping. Words escaping me.
Mm-hmm.
But it was common for, at the time, this was the issue with Jews and Christians alike, is because they refused to worship the Roman gods, they believed that whatever misfortune came upon them was because of their refusal to worship the Roman gods. They were like, you can worship Yahweh, you can worship Jesus, whatever. That's all fine and well. As long as you worship the Roman gods, or at least give a little offering to the Roman gods too, then it's all good. But they refused to do that. So they were often used as like the scapegoat.
Right.
Anyway, I feel like I'm rambling.
It was I did want to
No,
say that
thank you.
it's clear that so even now American Christians or Christians around the world will believe that they're persecuted when, say, the government says that other people besides just heterosexual couples can get married, and they'll believe that society taking away the big stick that they've been whacking everyone with is persecution. Persecution is rooted within the Christian ethos. It's part of like what identifies a Christian. And I think this is a later development, because in Dr. Kyle Smith, I was turning around because I was trying to find it. This is an amazing book, Dr. Kyle Smith. He talks about Christianity being a cult of the dead. It's about it's how Christians observe, like, look at death, look at martyrdom, look at like how they take care of their beloved dead. You talk about outside of the type of Christianity I was part of, you got like relics and bones of saints and things like that. There, it's a very big. And I think this was all a later development. Again, this is just me thinking, so we'll move it over to that side of it. If I say anything wrong, this side can correct me.
Correct.
This is, yeah.
I get where you're going with it.
No, you're right. I don't know.
While you recollect your thoughts, I was going to say, like, it's like this is true. I think the there's a persecution narrative that ends up becoming built into some of these early religious expressions, so much so that the word martyr is a word that was basically invented as a result of later Christian persecution.
Yeah.
The word is based on it's a Greek word. It comes from the verb I think it's martureo is the verb. And the verb itself, all it means is to testify or to bear witness. That's it. So there are numerous places within Paul's letters, certainly, where he talks about martyrs for the faith, which are within this earlier context. These are people who are just bearing witness for Jesus, right?
Right.
This then gets picked up in some later texts, like the Acts of the Apostle, like the Book of Revelation, which was written by somebody who was enduring what looks like a fairly intense persecution by the Roman Empire. But this idea then is kind of takes on a life of its own, where bearing witness to your faith or to Jesus now suddenly becomes a life or death situation.
Yeah. It's definitely something that as soon as you become a Christian, it's like the next thing that they tell you, okay, just expect to be persecuted. It's just part of being a Christian. And it's,
Yeah.
because everywhere
And the
you
thing
look,
is,
you
like,
can think you're being persecuted.
yeah. And the thing is, like, martyrdom or persecution is not unique in
Mhm.
Christianity.
Right.
Like, you go back into the Apocrypha, there's a book of Maccabees. There's a story of like a woman who has 5 sons. And I'm trying to remember this correctly now. And so they, what is it? They tell her to like forsake the God of the Jews or something, or eat pork. I'm getting details mixed up. And she's like, no. So they take like her oldest son and they like cut his tongue out, and they cut his hands off and his feet off, and they boil him alive. And then they're like, how about now? And she's like, no. And then so they do it to all of her kids.
Oof.
And she's like, still no, I'm not going to forsake my God. And then they do it to her. This is 200-300 years before Jesus.
Yeah.
There's another story of an old man that they try to force to eat pork, and he refuses. And so they like the soldiers like beating the shit out of him. And so these other soldiers that kind of have are upset about how he's being treated, and this is how the story goes. They're like, hey, we'll switch the meat out. We'll make it beef instead of pork. Just eat it and pretend like it's pork. So they'll stop beating the shit out of you.
Oh my God.
And he's like, no, I'm not doing that. Just go ahead and beat the shit out of me. That's a real story. I'm not making that up. So like, yeah, this idea of like being persecuted for your belief is not unique to Christianity, not by a long shot.
Not at all.
No.
Right before I left Christianity, it was COVID, and of course that was a huge part of persecution of the church. So that's my last memory of how the church was being persecuted. So anyways, that's a whole other.
Yeah. That's kind of how they get you. Like if people are persecuting you, that's a sign that you're right.
You're in the true
faith. No, it's a sign that you're batshit fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Right.
But this is, this really is the terrible consequence of all of this. Like these texts were written by people who really were living on a knife's edge in many respects. They were marginalized, oppressed people who, were fighting for their own survival, for their lives and their freedom of ideas and expression and stuff. Right now, what has happened is we have those of us who have come through this tradition are now on the other side of the coin. We're the ones who are in positions of power and influence and authority. So when you've inherited this culture of persecution, and now you're suddenly in the position of power, this is where real serious problems erupt. Because all of a sudden things that are just matters of entitlement become matters of persecution or marginalization.
I still have to like harp on about, I really like, even the symbol of Christianity is the device in which their Messiah was crucified, was tortured. I mean, it's baked in. Persecution is baked into the story. Like even if you can't find anything to complain about politically or sociologically, you have an eternal struggle. You have the thorn in your side. You're persecuted by the devil. Like this, it's just part of the ethos of the multiverse of Christianity. You know what I mean? It's just, you know, there are, and yeah. Take a mental disorder, take something that everyone else deals with, anxiety, and call it the devil, and you've got persecution. It's just it's how it's part of its. You can't talk about Christianity without talking about persecution, in my mind, at least theologically, at least like psychologically.
David, did you ever read any of the Jesus Freak books?
I read it. First of all, they're amazing. Like the book, the actual.
The only
books?
Jesus Freak I can think of is DC Talk. So
Yeah.
is that
they
it?
wrote
Yeah.
three,
Okay.
I think it was 3 books.
Okay.
I've read a little bit.
Stories of martyrs, and like the third one was like women martyrs. Yeah, I read all of those. And,
is it developed from like Fox's Book of Martyrs?
No, it was like it was a mix.
It was like recent, wasn't it?
Yeah,
like recent,
like
last
10,
couple hundred years.
10, 12
really?
years
I think
ago.
it was
Yeah,
older than that.
yeah. It was DC Talk that wrote it, and it was like
Yeah.
so like, they would like incorporate stories from like the early church fathers to like more modern day, like Cassie and the Columbine massacre.
Yeah.
So like
wow.
they would have like stories about Chinese martyrs and like all these. Yeah, and it was nuts. And then like I did some digging, and like they're all like extremely exagerated or made up entirely. And so it's like
You don't say.
Yeah, right.
Imagine if he like released a 4th volume, and it was like all Islamic like martyrs, and then there was the 5th volume that was all like Hindu martyrs, and like the same because I mean every religion has martyrs at a certain stage. Like they go around telling people that their gods are wrong.
It's a total cash grab.
Just not the Scientologists. They're the only ones who don't.
Yeah, they just sue you. They just like bleed dry. Yeah.
Or you just disappear. There's no martyr. You just...
But I think we can all agree that that album kicked some ass, though.
That was a good.
It was.
album.
Credit
There's
where
a few that I
due.
still.
DC Talk are talented musicians.
Yeah.
Just I will when the birth of our son, who's almost 6 months old, which is crazy. That song was stuck in my head. I've never heard it before. I think because it was such an emotional time, Jesus was on my mind for some reason. Like because I think I associate emotion with Jesus, and that song "Jesus Freak" came up in my mind.
Jesus Freak song.
It was the whole time, the
when
the night
he was
before,
being born.
While Amy was in labor. It was just like, what will people say when? And I was just like, get out of my head. It was like an earworm. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I had a Chris Tomlin song going through my head during my first baby being born, and now I'm just so I understand. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. What were you gonna say, Ricky?
I don't know. What was I going to say?
Oh, I don't know. I thought someone was going to say that. Sorry. Okay, never mind.
I was going to say I really like the lounge singer version of Jesus Freak at the end of that album.
You got to be careful with Kipp, because like we spent when he came on Deep Drinks, we spent 40 minutes talking about metal bands.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm done.
You get kind of like you're hanging out with friends, so you kind of go on these little rabbit trails, but that's okay. So I was gonna ask my next question, kind of along these lines, was like, how do you guys think Christianity spread and gain followers in the Roman Empire? Just given, I don't know. That's what I do wonder myself, given just the context of it. How did it get to where it is now and last for as long as it did?
What was unique about Christianity in the first and second century and into the third is they wrote shit down.
Right.
They wrote down doctrine, practices, like in Roman religions, and they didn't do that. There was no like written doctrine. Like this is how you perform this sacrifice. They didn't do any of that. It was all like word of mouth. It was very cultural, like widely known. But Christians came around and they came up with these new ideas, and they started writing all these different ideas down. And they came the Gnostics. They did the same thing. So it kind of came with like this in the first and second century, like this boom of like literature,
Right.
from my estimation.
Mm-hmm.
And then what ultimately was it became this was fascinating about the first and second century is when you look in like all the literature that's being written at the time, it's just Christians arguing with Christians. There's not much else.
And it's still our Christians
Yeah,
arguing with
like
Christians.
there's not a whole like there's historians like Josephus and Tertullian or not Tertullian, but like Pliny the Younger and other and Suetonius, that they're writing like different like historical accounts of things.
Right.
But the Christians are arguing with other Christians. So you got like Irenaeus like arguing with the Gnostics or writing against the Gnostics rather. You got Justin Martyr doing the same thing. So that's like the bulk of their literature in the first and second century is Christians arguing with other Christians. So eventually it became to like the group that won out in the end was what scholars I think call the proto-Orthodox Christians, because there was like there was like 20 different, more than that, sects of Christianity, and they were all
now how many do we have?
Oh yeah,
like
but it was so
tens
much
of
crazier
thousands.
back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were wild.
It was so much wilder back then than it is now. Though. Even though
kind of
there's more
examples can you give?
denominations today,
Yeah.
back then their ideas about doctrine or core doctrine and who Jesus was and the resurrection was just all over the place. Like there were groups of Christians like the Marcionites believed that the Old Testament God was evil and Jesus came representing the new or a different God that was all for love, because like Marcion read the Old Testament and the New Testament, he's like, clearly this is a different God from this God. So he was like, yeah, Jesus must come representing a new God that was opposed the other God, and Jesus came to save us. And the Gnostics were like, no, there's this other God that created the universe, that created Earth as a punishment for us, and we have to like achieve some sort of gnosis so we can escape that, and that's how we get salvation, through knowledge. So like, yeah, it was all over the place in the ancient world.
There's like there was sects that believed that like the serpent was actually like trying to persuade Eve to eat the fruit, and the serpent was actually because there was the true God who tricked Yahweh into creating the Garden of Eden and all that stuff. And it's wild. This transmigration of the soul, which is kind of like reincarnation. They've got like this sex, like wild sex is all over the place. And I kind of wonder what sect Ontangelo would be in. Maybe we should vote on that.
So to take it back to the question, I think it's important to point out here too. I think Paul oftentimes gets a bit of a bad rap for being a rank misogynist. And one of the oh look, I'm big now.
Yeah.
I think one of the appealing features of Christianity, at least in the first century, was the fact that that there was an appeal there to marginalized people like women and like slaves.
Right.
The principles were grounded in like a communalism. They were grounded in everyone being brothers and sisters in Christ. And this would have been an appealing message for people within a wider Roman culture, where it's estimated that 1/3 of the population of the Roman Empire was enslaved to someone. So in terms of how Christianity gained traction and grew like it did,
Mhm.
I think it was appealing to a lot of people.
Oh,
Just because of some of the, I mean, there were among among the churches that Paul was leading, there were women who were in positions of authority and were, exercising that authority.
Mhm.
So it of course, in later years, the guys, they tamped down on that. But
Mhm.
in the earliest stages in the first century, there was it was a place where I think people had freedoms and rights of expression that they didn't experience in other
Mm.
aspects of
Okay.
society.
That makes
Can
sense.
can we like back then there were a lot of polytheism was a big deal, right? Polytheism was
Mhm.
huge, and people could like worship a new god. So someone comes to town and they're like, hey, I've got the god of sand or something, I don't know, or the god of war. PlayStation 2 game, amazing. But like they come and they're like, I've got this god, and,
Okay.
they can add it to the repertoire of gods you can worship. But when Christianity comes in, Christianity is like, no, those gods, you don't worship those
Mhm.
gods anymore. You worship just one god, and then you can see how like Christianity would just continue to expand that way, because
Mhm.
because it doesn't need, because it's like stamping out these other religious groups as that it's kind of doing that, these commitments to other deities, because it's
Mhm.
monotheistic.
Oh no.
Yep.
I don't know.
It's when
That's the
we
way that
move
was
the
happening.
screen. I have the same problem with my headphones. Every time I'm on stream, I have to just
Okay,
talking about
keep talking 1 sec.
yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Well,
So
no, go ahead, David.
Is
so,
it,
so talk again.
is it better?
It's
Yeah.
better.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Something with
It's
changing the screens.
yeah, it's
Maybe,
streaming
'cause-
out. It's like changing.
yeah.
Like it does it to me too. It's so frustrating. Every time I show a
Okay.
video on stream, I have to
Okay.
disconnect my headphones and then reconnect them.
Okay,
and
good
I'm
to
really
know.
quick at it.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Okay. So Kat asks, when did the 3-in-1 God come in?
It didn't. It never
It
did.
didn't. That's heresy saying that it even
It still hasn't come in. No,
Okay.
I don't. I actually asked this question on Twitter. I have no idea why it's such a big deal, and I have no idea
Mhm.
the history of the Trinity. Can someone please enlighten?
Yeah,
Who knows?
because that is like a salvific issue in at least the churches I attended.
Yeah, I remember that being a big deal. Like,
Yeah.
all the way
So
through.
okay. Oof. I have to review my notes.
Ricky's got pages of notes about this somewhere.
I do.
You know,
He's
got a
72 page Trinity Google Doc.
he's got an Excel doc that
I do. I do literally. So that was the problem when it comes to the early church claiming that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit were 3-in-1, and they received this like criticism from, again, Gnostics, like how that doesn't make any sense. So you have is like early church fathers who are very Hellenized, and they rely on like Stoicism and Neoplatonism, like ideology to try and like reconcile how that can be. So what was the most popular for a while was called what's it called? Not Pathpagianism. Not Sabellianism, Pathpagianism, it's the same thing. Modalism. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
I was gonna
That's
say
it.
modalism.
yeah.
There's
So
a
the idea
few
was like,
preachers who definitely preach modalism, and they're
Yeah.
heretics in the Christian
right. So
community.
modalism was deemed as a heresy later on.
Yeah.
But that modalism was all the rage at first for like
Mhm.
150 years.
Okay.
And the idea was like God can exist in 3 different modes. The
Mhm.
analogy goes, if remembering right, like I'm I'm a husband. I can also be a dad. I can also be
Yeah.
a man. Like that's kind of like one person, but I can exist in 3 different roles. And then and that evolved into Sabellianism and Pathpassianism, which was deemed as a heresy later on. But the first person to come up with the term Trinity was, I think, it was Tertullian. Hang on.
Wow.
Yeah, Tertullian in Against Praxis in the early 2nd century. Where's the origin?
Chrissy, just as you look that up, Chrissy has an amazing comment that is just Trinitarian is just polytheism in denial. I just like that. I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. So all that to say is like, yeah, the idea that the doctrine of the Trinity didn't come about until like the mid 3rd century. This was solidified in the First Council of Constantinople in the mid 3rd century. Prior to that, it was all over the place. This idea was evolving, and eventually, they settled on this, kind of like they settled in the Council of Nicaea, that Jesus and God were equal. About 7,500 years later, the Great Council of Constantinople, they were like, yeah, now this was funny about the Council of Nicaea, is it was all about the relationship between God and Jesus, but they kind of forgot about the Holy Spirit. Like it was mentioned like briefly a couple of times, but it wasn't really worried about. Like they were all about, and then like in the Great Council of Constantinople, they were like, oh shit, we forgot about the Holy Spirit. Yeah, let's bring him in on this action too. Yeah, he's equal too with Jesus and God. Yeah,
Right.
That's doctrine now. Right. Yeah. Sign right there. Yeah. That's
So-
pretty much how it happened in a very tightly condensed nutshell.
It's worth pointing out here too that I think most scholars, and I'm not a New Testament specialist, but as someone who works with like early Judaism, and who reads the first Christian text as an expression of early Jewish religion, I think it's important to point out most scholars will tell you that at the earliest stages, Jesus was not promoted as God.
Okay.
Right.
And I think it's debatable within Paul's writings whether he thinks of Jesus as God, and there's a tendency within our modern language to kind of conflate this idea of the Son of God with God, when from the perspective of a 1st century Palestinian Jew, these are not the same thing. The Israelites, in prior to the Babylonian exile, when they had kings and priests, used to identify kings just like every other ancient Near Eastern tribe or nation as sons of God.
Right.
More than anything, I think within the emergence of Christianity, this idea of Jesus being God's son is much more closely connected to that than it is to any claims of divinity. And I'll just say one other thing about this too. Being a divine figure is also not the same thing as being God. So
Right.
there are angels who are celestial divine figures. There are sons of gods within a polytheistic worldview who are not on the same level as the king of the gods. There's these quasi divine figures within Greco Roman mythology, like Hercules, like Achilles, who
Right.
are kind of somewhere in between the human realm and the divine realm. So it's a problem in how people have come to talk about these things and to see these things, because we've just drawn this sharp distinction
Mhm.
between divine and mortal. When
Right.
in antiquity, it's
It
a
was like a
lot more
spectrum.
fluid than that. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like you read Philippians chapter 2, again running with Paul.
Yeah.
He says Jesus he did, even though he existed in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God something to be grasped for, but he remained obedient even until death,
Mhm.
and then he was exalted to a position that was equal with God. So even by
Wow.
Paul's own like theology, like Jesus was the pre-incarnate being, but he wasn't equal with God at first. But due to his obedience, he was made equal with God. And you look at like a lot of apologists like to cite John to say that Jesus is God. Like they quote verses like, and Jesus said, "I am that I am." I and the Father are one, but they totally ignore the verse that says, "I can do nothing outside of the will of my Father." That's in John.
Right.
That teaches that Jesus is subservient to God still in the Gospel of John. So it's like, what do you do with all this information?
Yeah. Isn't it Mormons who don't believe Jesus is God, or am I
I think
incorrect?
it's the Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses.
Or Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses.
I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
Right.
The Jehovah's Witnesses are like sad Mormons. Is that
They're sad Mormons.
Sad Mormons. They're
But
like
they
the
can drink.
Sadducees.
The Jehovah's Witnesses can at least drink alcohol. Mormons can't.
Oh, I don't. Can they? I don't.
Yeah,
Well,
they can.
Mormons can't even have like coffee.
They can't even
like,
have coffee.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, Mormons can. JWs can drink alcohol, really?
yeah, they can. Yeah.
I couldn't drink alcohol when I was just a Christian.
I know it's very
Yeah.
looked down upon.
no. Yeah. Yeah. We were
Whatever.
teetotalers in my tradition as well.
I
So,
got really judged when I ordered a beer with my dinner at a restaurant when I
me
turned
too, once.
18.
oh,
Yeah, like people like like it was like us with 3 Christians, we're about to go do a prayer meeting on the beach, just 4 of us, and it was just like lemon lime bitters, lemon lime bitters, lemon lime bitters, and I was like, can I please have a Corona? And then they're like, looked at me. One guy was like shooting fire at me from
Yeah,
across
that
the
happened.
table, shaking his head. And I was just like, what? I was like, I'm not getting drunk. I'm just having Jesus turned water into wine. And then like they'll make comments like, you're gonna have beer breath when we're praying for each other. And I'm like, what the like, holy, really? Like,
David, you and I, we have so many similarities. Because yeah,
now
we went out with our youth group and I ordered wine, and the pastor's daughter was shooting me daggers. So
now I have to I have to tell a story now.
Oh, please.
So after while I was still a Christian, and long after, I don't know, I think I was 25, 26 years old, I was an adult. We went back to my parents for Christmas, and my brother got me a nice little 4-pack of Big Rock Special Edition Winter Ale. It came with
ooh.
2 lovely beer sleeves as well. And my stepmom told me I was not allowed to bring it inside the house. It was not allowed. And I thought she was joking. I was like, yeah, that's funny. No.
Oh, that's
And
funny.
this is in Calgary, and it's like 25 degrees below zero.
It would have froze. In the
I
car.
was allowed to keep it in the garage.
Oh, okay.
So, but like in the moment, I'm like, what do I do with this?
It's not a dead animal.
Yeah, and so I'm hanging out with my brother. I'm hanging out with my family, and he and I can't enjoy a drink together at Christmas unless we want to go sit in the garage.
Freezing cold.
Yeah,
sitting
Have
on
your
like the
eyeballs
lawnmower,
freeze.
just like
that's persecution.
That is persecution.
Right? But they'll look at you and be like, you're persecuting us by wanting to bring that into the house.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Oh my god.
So here's a
Sorry.
question. No. I'm just I could do that kind of thing all night, but just to keep it on. So speaking of that kind of stuff, how did early Christians interact with and influence other religions and philosophical like schools of thought.
Well, I
Boy,
think
that's a good
just
one.
because I only got one little thing to say about this, I think the interesting thing about Christianity is that the difference with it is when it became a message to the Gentiles. Like that was the big thing. But when it was just, if it wasn't for Paul, it probably would have only been stayed a small Jewish sect, like the Pharisees, Sadducees, and the Christians,
or
right?
disappeared altogether.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Because this is, I mean, before I'll just say this quickly before we continue. This is what happened with the Jewish War between 67 and 70 CE. There was a litany of Jewish sects, a variety of dynamic different expressions of Judaism, including those first Christians. But then when the Romans came in and sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, like they all disappeared. All that was left was the Pharisees. That was it. And this is where like modern, what we call rabbinic Judaism, emerged out of the Pharisees. So I think if not for Paul, no, there wouldn't have even been a surviving remnant of Judaism, because none of them made it.
Yeah. So he was like a crazy cult leader. Basically.
Or an entrepreneur. Like
or that.
Which might be the same thing. So sorry, David, continue.
No, that's I jumped in because that's all I had to say. So that's literally
that's
what
all you had to say.
Yeah, that's why I was like, I need to get in here because otherwise someone's going to say it.
I'll say one thing in terms of innovation, because this is something I've been working on a little bit most recently. I think there's a good case to be made that later Jewish rabbinic messianic expectation and eschatology was probably influenced quite a bit by Christianity, which seems kind of counterintuitive in view of the fact that later Christianity was pretty anti-Semitic, or really anti-Semitic. But I don't think there's any question, because what's going on prior to, like, in this fuzzy mishmash world of varieties of Jewish expression, one of the things that we also see is that there's no really ideas about the end of the world, the last days, the Messiah are also really, really fluid. There's nothing that's very well established. Lots of it's really ambiguous. And that's something that changes much later within the rabbinic texts. You see a real solidification of a more firm, concrete sense of messianism, eschatology, and some of this I think reflects a little bit on what how Christians basically ran with this and turned this apocalyptic movement into this far ranging expectation for eternal life and paradise in heaven and those sorts of things. So there's one place where Christianity had an influence on their neighbors.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to highlight this really quick from Jason. Paul actually writes like an internet troll, and it's amazing. He was an Iron Age keyboard warrior. So.
Oh, dude.
No, not Iron Age, dude. Sorry, but
I was going to make a joke that he's like the first century Andrew Tate, but I don't think he was. I think he was better than that.
Yeah, read Irenaeus. He's definitely like a keyboard warrior or some stuff that he says. It's hilarious because he's arguing against the Gnostics, and he's like, they believe in having secret knowledge that nobody else has. I'm like, but don't you make the same claim? Like when we engage with Polish, they're like, you're not, because he's literally like, they claim we're not interpreting the scriptures correctly because they have this secret knowledge. And like, you have the Holy Spirit. Right, that's your argument is.
Yeah.
Oh, true.
it's the same shit. He's mad because anytime he tries to engage with the Gnostics, they're like, you just don't have the divine spark, so you're not going to understand. But it's the same. It's the exact same vibe as like, you don't have the Holy Spirit, so you're not going to you can't really understand.
Yeah.
But back to the original question. I think a big effort in the first and second century was normalizing Christianity, because it was somewhat persecuted, or at least frowned upon. And you can read the works of Justin Martyr and see this very plainly. He writes 2 apologies, first and second apology, and and he writes those letters to the emperor, and he's writing them to like try to convince the emperor to stop persecuting them and to make the claims of Christianity sound valid by comparing them with the Roman religion. So let me pull up this is a quote from First Apology. So you know how like apologists today are like, Jesus was nothing like the Roman gods, like the resurrection stories, the virgin birth, like parallels. That's not Jesus. It's completely different. Well, Justin Martyr in the 2nd century was saying, hey, Jesus is exactly like those other gods.
Right.
This is the quote. I'm just going to read it. Let this, as said above, be no extraordinary thing to you, who say that Mercury is the angelic word of God. But if anyone objects that he was crucified, in this also he is one on par with those reputed sons of Jupiter and yours, who suffered, and we have now enamored. And if we even affirm that he was born of a virgin, except this in common with what you accept of Perseus, and that what we say he made whole the lame, the paralytic, and those who were born blind, we seem to say that it was very similar to the deeds said to have been done by Epicurus. So wording, ancient language, but yeah, what he's saying is like, Jesus is no different. Like Jupiter suffered, like that's your criticism of Jesus. Oh, he suffered, so did Jupiter. Jesus was born of a virgin, so was Epicurus. So like Jesus healed, so did this other god. So Justin Martyr is saying he's no different. So Justin Martyr's like goal, again, he's writing to the emperor, not just to the emperor, he's writing to the emperor's sons, one of which was like an esteemed philosopher, and to the like the Senate. He's writing all this to like all these like very high powerful people. No idea if they actually read it, but that's who he wrote it to. And the same thing with his second apology and his third apology. His third writing is called A Dialogue with Typho. Typho was like an old friend of his, because Justin Martyr was a former Neoplatonist. And he had a friend named Typho who was also a Neoplatonist. So when Justin Martyr converted to Christianity, his friend, like his best friend, BFF, was like, dude, you're nuts. Why would you think these things? So Justin Martyr writes this long ass letter explaining to him, this is why I converted. This is why I believe what I believe. And what he's saying, it's hilarious because like if you listen to like, again, modern apologists, they're like, these scientists, these world-renowned scientists got like this, and this right, but they got like this wrong about all of it, right? They got the whole like the overarching thing wrong. That's what Justin Martyr is saying about the like ancient philosophers, including like Socrates and Plato. He's like, they were right about this, they were right about this, but they were wrong about everything else. And I discovered the truth. That's what Justin Martyr is saying to his friend. He's like, that's why I converted, because I realized the philosophers were all wrong. And it's fucking bananas, like when you actually read it. Yeah. Anyway, I feel like that was long-winded.
Yeah,
but...
no, that was great. I mean, I think we all kind of felt like that when we were converted, or at least grew up with it, thinking,
yeah,
I'm so glad I know the truth.
You feel like you discovered the secret knowledge that nobody else has.
Exactly. I was thinking of that today. I was thinking, I remember thinking back, I'm so thankful that I was born into this family, or I was raised this way because I was raised with the truth. Well, I'm sure everyone in every religion feels that way. So, and I would think that too. So, anyways, just a little random tidbit.
Yeah.
So that just goes to show it's not anything special, if you happen to just be born into it. So,
Mhm.
yeah. But so can you explain the role of bishops in the development of the ecclesiastical hierarchy in early Christianity?
Ooh.
I cannot.
You cannot. Have I stumped you?
So the first place we see any sort of regulation into that is in a book called the Didache. The Didache is like a late 1st century text, like written about the same time Acts and John and Revelation was.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about the Didache is it's an instruction manual of how Christians should live their life. There's instructions on how to perform the Eucharist, how to do baptism, how to pray, how to fast. If I remember right, I think there's a story about someone like stealing money and how to deal with that. But anyway, but there's also like instructions on how to like appoint bishops and deacons in the church. What's interesting about this, the Didache, is it's not written in an apocalyptic context. Like you read every single book in the New Testament, you'll find some version of the phrase "the end is near," "the end is coming," "the end is coming soon," blah 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 blah. We're in the last hour, yada yada. Except for the Book of John. The Book of John's not so much like that. The Didache, that's to say, the author of the Book of John seems to have abandoned this idea that the end is coming very soon.
Mhm.
He's making it more ambiguous, like it's going to happen maybe sometime, we don't really know. Every other book is like it's going to happen soon. Sell all your shit, don't get married, don't have sex, bad things will happen, right? But John, it's much more ambiguous, like it's going to happen eventually. The Didache is like that. In the Didache, again, the end of the 1st century, 95 100 CE, it's setting in for the long haul. It's a list of instructions like, hey, we're going to be around for a while, you guys. So with that in mind, here's how we need to conduct ourselves moving forward until the day comes, because we have no idea. But yeah, that's the first time we sort of start seeing those kinds of instructions. And then after Constantine conquers Rome, he gives more of like a military structure to the hierarchy in the church. So like bishops and deacons now have like authority to enact laws. And it more mimics like the Roman military rank and structure. But yeah, that's what I that's what I have to contribute to that.
Thank you.
Hope that was helpful.
Thanks, Ricky.
That was awesome. Okay, well, David, unless you have anything to contribute to
The
that
only
part.
thing I know about bishops, I my Patreon is like all Catholic tiers, and I had to Google what a bishop was. And like, where was it? Is it higher than is it lower? It's lower than a pope, but is it higher than I don't know. But to put it in the tiers,
Isn't that the
that's
chess
all I know
piece that can only move like diagonally?
Oh yeah, that's true. That's all I know of it. Yeah,
that was always my favorite.
It's been a while.
Chess. I was like the bishop. So
I do have a couple of starred questions and then a super chat, and then if there's anything else you guys want to say. But Kat just wanted to know, she was wondering how many other people were running around claiming they were a prophet.
Tons.
Back in those
So
days.
So
Okay.
Josephus tells us of he dedicates an entire section in his antiquities to basically failed apocalyptic prophets, failed messiahs, people who claim to be the Messiah and who ultimately got crushed by the Romans. And then even after Josephus, perhaps the most famous of all the messianic claimants, other than Jesus, was a guy by the name of Simon Bar Kokhba, who led a revolt in Jerusalem, which actually met with some success, so much so that the Romans had to come back and crush this movement and put the region back under their control. And it was as a result of Simon Bar Kokhba's revolt and his promotion of himself as, or the promotion of his group of him as a Messiah, that the Jews ended up finally being expelled. And really Rome had just had enough and dispersed them. The rabbis decided that because of his failure, they changed his name. The name originally meant so it's his name, or sorry, I'm getting this wrong. So during his heyday, his name was changed to Bar Kokhba, which means son of the star. And this is in response to a famous passage from the book of Genesis, chapter 49, which predicts that out of Judah will arise a star. And this is a regarded as a messianic text. So they changed his name and started calling him Bar Kokhba. And then when he failed, the rabbis were like, maybe not. Maybe we were wrong about that. But I'll say one more interesting thing about this guy. So he actually left when the Romans came in and they took control of Jerusalem. Bar Kokhba and his forces fled into the Judean desert, and they holed up in a set of caves, which are just south of Qumran, just north of Masada, at a place called Nahal Hever. And there's a series of caves that have been discovered and excavated in the 1960s, and within them they're also found documents. And very exciting, several of these are letters actually written by Simon Bar Kokhba himself.
Wow.
When the archive was discovered, the archaeologist who found them, his name was Yigal Yadin, and he is a legendary figure within modern Israeli history. He was an archaeologist. He was a soldier in the first Civil War, and then fighting against the Arab nations who declared war on Israel. He became the deputy prime minister in Israel. He was also a professor at the Hebrew University. Like, this guy literally did it all. One of the things that he was quite famous for, as a politician, a high-ranking Israeli politician and military figure, and also an archaeologist, he really focused his efforts on archaeology in the region. So Yigal Yadin excavated at Masada. He worked on the Dead Sea Scrolls. He's the one who basically published the Temple Scroll, which was the largest of the Dead Sea Scrolls. He's the one who excavated the caves at Nahal Hever. And when this happened, there was a big meeting at I don't remember exactly the occasion, but there was a big meeting at the Knesset, which is the Israeli parliament. And Yigal Yadin was giving an address. This was when these documents were first discovered. People didn't really know what was there, so he's giving this public address, and he stands up in front of the Knesset in Jerusalem there, and in front of all the media, and he addresses the president directly and says, "Mr. President, I'd like to present to you correspondences from the last president of the nation of Israel."
Wow.
And then, handed over this archive of these letters that were written by Simon Bar Kokhba. It was a very dramatic moment. But sorry,
That is
so
crazy.
yes, there were lots of these messianic prophetic figures, but
Wow.
all of them were ultimately unsuccessful. We know of there was a guy by the name of the Egyptian. There was another guy by the name of the Galilean. And some of these movements too were popular. Like I think it's the Egyptian is said to have had thousands of people with him, marching into Jerusalem. So yeah, it was a big deal.
It's not just messianic figures as well. It's or prophets. There's miracle workers. There's John the Baptist was an apocalyptic teacher. There was Honai the circle drawer. Is that
Honai the circle drawer?
Can you read the Honai Mechagul? Can you read? I posted it in the comments. I don't know how to actually say that.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. A couple comments up. Honai.
Oh.
I want to just hear you.
I want to see it.
That.
Just
here, I'll highlight it here.
You want me to read it?
Yeah. How do you pronounce that?
Honai Mechagul.
Oh, cool. So,
I mean,
but yeah, he was a famous first century BCE. He drew a circle in the ground, drew a circle in the dust, sat there and told God that he wanted it to rain, and then he could command the rain, and it would rain heavy, and then it would rain, and he'd ease it off, and it would ease off, and he was a miracle worker. There's so many stories of this stuff.
Wow.
And think about the scraps that we have for Christianity, the absolute scraps. Both of you guys have been on my channel, and we're talking about what we do, Dr. Kill. We looked at 9 manuscripts before 200 CE for six manuscripts for the entire. That's Christianity, one of the biggest religions in the world. Now think about everything that was recorded that has just been missing, or things that weren't even recorded, of all the people that could have been running around. Yeah, it was a fun time in Jerusalem.
Wow.
At the time.
There's also a group of Christians in the late 2nd century called the Montanists.
Oh yeah,
Montanists.
Oh my gosh.
They were the ancient equivalent of Pentecostals.
Oh,
they were the ones running around claiming
with
they
the
were
flag.
healing people. Yeah, the swords and swinging around and dancing and speaking. Yeah, but no, they were the group that were running around speaking in tongues, claiming they were prophetic, and they caused a big ruckus. And at the time, Christianity was kind of under a magnifying glass, so other Christians were like, "Y'all, shut the fuck up!
Yeah."
Calm
You're
down.
drawing too much attention.
You're bringing too much attention to us. For real. That's what was. They were very, out and open. They were running around screaming and
wow.
But this
tongues, and other Christians were like,
that's so funny, because the version of Christianity that I was taught in ministry college was Christians were going around healing people, and they had to hide in caves, and they would draw the little symbol of the fish, and that was the secret symbol, so they wouldn't get killed. Because the Romans wanted to kill them just for being Christian. And it's that's so not.
Gosh.
Such a.
Not,
hey, do you think Montana was named after the Montanists?
Ooh.
Sorry.
oh.
Next
Does
time,
anybody
I'll
know?
say
Someone tell me.
Montana known
why
for being
why
obnoxious
Montana?
and
Google it. Start Googling
I could do
the
that.
no, that would actually be something that would be interesting to know, the genesis of Montana. I just wanted to highlight this cat saying, I could see how someone would steal Jesus out of the tomb to make him seem like the real prophet. And then they have someone pretend to be Jesus to pretend he rose from the dead. So,
I think
yeah.
I think Dr. James Tabor thinks something like that.
Is it
I
Swoon Fury or
believe
something?
so.
Yeah, I think he thinks that like the disciples actually removed the body from the tomb. As like Bart Ehrman doesn't think that Jesus was buried at all. Dr. James Tabor thinks that, like the disciples removed the body to add like legitimacy to their claims about him.
Right.
Yeah, who knows?
I also just wanted to show this. Thank for the super chat from Electric Monk. This came in a while ago, and he says, or they said, "Can we have book lists in chat, or better still, comments, please?"
Book list.
Oh,
I will drop in my. I don't know if
Mhm.
it'll show up, but I'll drop in my book list from Deep Drinks from all the guests that have come on. Every book that we've talked about is in this.
Give me just
including the Case for Christ.
Oh, yes.
That's
Actually,
at
I
the
think
top
it
of
might
the
be, I
list.
think it might be
Number
on there.
one.
There's some weird books
Obviously.
on there.
Number
Top of the
one.
list.
Yeah, I don't know
I
if
just
it's gonna pop up.
I wanted to point out that Nitty answered my question
Oh,
and says that Montana comes from the Spanish word Montana, which in turn comes from the Latin word Montanea. I mean, I don't know Latin, so that means mountain, or more broadly mountainous country.
there
So
you
that
go.
makes way more sense than Montana being named after the Montanists. But
I
it's
like that theory,
less
though.
fun. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh.
Yeah.
Why do I have to
Wow.
connect? This is weird.
There you go.
Okay, I'm trying to post my. I have
Yeah,
a
I
reading
think,
list. Something we posted.
I posted my reading list in private chat. If someone can re-comment it, that has admin privileges.
Sure, I can do that.
Because because there's like lots of good stuff in there.
Perfect. I'll do that now.
Just one
oops.
second.
And we have just another question here from Carrie Ann. This was from a little while ago, but what impact do you think Vesuvius plays in Revelation?
In
Ooh.
the writing of the Book of Revelation?
I'm guessing.
Mount Vesuvius.
Yeah.
I don't know because the symbolism in Revelation doesn't really mimic a volcano very well.
And this might actually be a reflection of how much later the Book of Revelation actually, because I think Vesuvius was
like 70s, right?
I think it was earlier. I think it was
Really?
in the early 60s even.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Nitty, get on it. Nitty was
think...
telling me he's a fast Googler. The Vesuvius eruption.
Well, he's a coder. That's the most programmers are just Googling.
Oh, there you
go. Josephus' father died in the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, if I'm remembering correctly.
Oh wow.
I think he got really close to try and study it in 79. Boom.
Oh, you were right. I was wrong.
Wow.
Wow.
I was barely right.
But I think the point is still possibly a useful one, that depending on like if the Book of Revelation is written even a fair bit later than that. I don't know where the scholarship is on this, but I think there is some does everyone think it's first century?
Revelation's like 95 earliest, I think, and some scholars put it like 110, maybe 115. So yeah, there could definitely be some like recollection. But whoever the author of Revelation was, he may have been like inspired by some of like the imagery that he's remembering, but he's still trying to predict the future.
Right.
So it makes sense that he wouldn't have like I don't know. Fuck.
The immediate.
I got no idea. I can't even pretend.
Okay.
No idea what the author of Revelation was thinking. He was bananas.
He was high.
Well, no, I mean, it's when you read enough of this kind of literature, because there is, there's Revelation draws pretty heavily from the Book of Daniel, from
Right.
Ezekiel,
Yeah.
and it's very similar to other what we call Jewish apocalyptic literature, such as what we see in the Book of Jubilees or in the books of Enoch, or in something like the War Scroll. There's tons of texts in the Dead Sea Scrolls which look similar. They have a they're part of this genre. So yeah, it's not Revelation is not especially unique. It's
Right.
it is
Yeah.
it is like a Greco-Roman take on a Jewish apocalypse.
Yeah.
Mm.
All right. And oops, sorry. Last question in our highlighted ones is from Nitty, from a little bit. Maybe in part, the Christian promise to be identified with the divine Son. So this is when we're talking about God and Jesus being one. Elated their personal status to the royalty of Caesar? Question
Well,
mark?
maybe Nitty should Google it.
Yeah, Nitty. You can answer your own
No.
question in really quick
Sorry,
time.
Sorry, I'm being cheeky. What was the question again?
Yeah, can you put that back up real quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Okay.
maybe the Christian promise to be identified with the divine Son, elevated
Elevated their personal status
Yeah.
to the royal. So I guess to put this another way, Nitty seems to be asking or positing the possibility that by adopting Jesus or promoting Jesus as a divine son, and then being adopted into God's family in a way
Mhm.
helps people to feel better about being, or help them to think about being on a higher level with Caesar. Am I reading that right? Are you guys reading it the same way?
I think so. I think that sounds
I'm
about right.
pretty
to me.
sure. Actually, I was talking about Justin Martyr earlier. I'm pretty sure Justin Martyr mentioned something about the myth of Caesar, like being when he died, being carried away by eagles to dwell among the gods, and like he compares that to Jesus. So maybe I'd have to double check on that, but I'm pretty
Mhm.
sure I saw that somewhere.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think I don't know is a very sufficient answer to
Yeah.
things.
But
rather than trying to
if
BS.
not Google, if you plug that into Chat GPT, it'll make up some bullshit for you.
There you
It's
go.
true. It's true. Ah, well.
Maybe we could try Yahoo or Bing. Yeah, maybe we'll have
Or
better
web
luck.
crawler. Do you remember web crawler?
Oh, Ask Jeeves. Just fuck it. Let's go. Let's go old school. Old school.
Can you-
Ask Jeeves.
I think web
you-
crawler is older than Ask Jeeves.
What about
Oh my
Netscape
God.
Navigator?
It's like 94.
You guys are
Netscape
kids. You guys are
Navigator.
kids. Yeah, Netscape and American Online are. There was one when when I first got the internet, there was a search engine called Magellan.
Called
I
what?
bet you guys have never heard of this, right?
What
It
was
was
No, I
called
haven't.
Magellan.
Magellan?
Magellan.
Magellan.
No.
Magellan was he was a navigator, right? I think he was the
Okay.
first to circumnavigate.
Oh,
the
I
globe.
remember
So-
Netscape Navigator.
Netscape was yeah. They were like in the old days. You had the choice between using Netscape or Magellan, or I think Yahoo was already a
Okay.
thing then. This
Is
was
that where you would go to download Oregon
Google.
Trail?
You
Yeah.
didn't download Oregon Trail. was
I love that game. That's
Oh,
just-
yeah.
Oh my god.
oh man.
That's hilarious.
Talking about old school games, did anyone ever play the there's a really old Christian game company called Wisdom Tree, and they just remade, they ripped off popular games like Zelda, Mario, and they made it like Noah, and like there's throwing the first. I think I even talked about this last time.
Oh, like the Christian video games.
Yeah,
I
that
yeah,
what
yeah,
you're
yeah. I
doing?
want to do
Yeah.
a playthrough of one of them.
Literally
You literally
today.
have to collect the armor of God, and then my brother was playing it, and he had the breastplate of righteousness, and he needed it to get to another part of the game, and he walked past a pub, and then I'll go into the pub. Went into the pub, and immediately kicked him out and said, "You've lost the breastplate of righteousness, and you have to go on this big mission to find it."
Oh,
And you throw the fruits of the spirit at people, and they die. And well, they don't die. They go like
throw
into a
the
prayer
fruits of the
stance.
spirit.
They go into
Christ
the prayer stance,
compels
and
you.
sometimes they have a demon inside them, and the demon comes out, and you've got to kill the demon.
Love,
as well.
joy,
So,
peace, patience, goodness, kindness, gentleness, and self-control.
Self-
Really, that
Yeah.
kills people.
Well, it was like
Oh my
grapes.
God.
It was like grapes, and grapes would go like this, and there was pears, and it was like they were all different.
You need
there was
to
different types of
play
get-
this as like a patron.
Oh
Yeah,
only, like play with
You
a
know,
bunch of people. It's a
Yeah.
patron
I've been
exclusive. Yeah.
I've been seeing some very disturbing ads on my own YouTube feed for like a new game where
Oh,
you're
that looks
you're
cool.
like Jesus and you're
Oh no, I'm
right. This one, oh no,
That's what I
were you
was about to
thinking? Have
say.
you seen
I
this?
saw. Yeah, I saw it like a TikTok literally today. I guess it was like a crowd-funded like video game where you are Jesus and you go through the Gospels and everything. And somebody stitched it, like they stitched like the promo for it, and he was wearing like the Oculus Rift goggles, and he was like, "Wow, this is so realistic." Oh man, I was like,
There actually is a Bible game coming
that
out
kind
that
of
is going to
blasphemy right there.
that's going to retell the whole story of the Bible. Like you play different scenes of the Bible, and I'm like, I'm down for that. That's cool. Like that's interesting.
That-
Yeah.
I wonder how much
they're
you
not
can,
going to
like,
tell it right
stray
though.
from-
No.
Like, how much can you stray from like the canon, the canonical events? Like when when Mary Magdalene like washes my feet, can I kick her in the face? And be like, what are you doing? I'm ticklish. Why are you? I don't like when you touch my feet. I have a thing about that. It goes back to my
Or
childhood.
you have a
know
foot
that.
fetish.
Why are you?
Yeah.
And it could
Oh
go
yeah,
the other way.
exactly. Yeah. Is it
Oh
like
my
an MMO? Like, is it about is someone else is a real other person washing
No.
your feet? Like, does someone play the role of Mary Magdalene? Does someone play the role of like that? Would be cool. I'll be down for that. You know what? I used to be a game developer. Someone talk to me. Let's get this thing happening.
All right.
That sounds so good.
It's like a choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
Oh my
Wow,
gosh.
those were good.
Wow.
It's like, can you like the choose your own adventure? But it's like, can you save Jesus? Like, can you choose the events that lead him to not be crucified? Like to escape, and like what would happen to Christianity after? Like, oh, this could be a fun game. So I'm getting excited.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we know there's a whole what's the guy's? I don't remember the author's name, but he wrote a whole novel about it in The Last Temptation of Christ. We know exactly what would happen.
The last. Why does
Did you? It was a movie too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was a
do you
movie.
guys
I
not know
remember
this?
the
It was
No.
second. It is the second best
That
Jesus movie
sounds-
ever made, right behind The
Yeah.
Life of Brian.
I'm
Okay,
familiar with
so-
it.
I think I've seen
you
that
people
movie.
need to watch.
Yeah, I
Willem
know that.
Willem Dafoe plays Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
gotta
know.
watch
Oh,
this.
gotta
It's a-
see it
it's a
now.
very-
I've definitely heard of it.
Just to give you kind of a snapshot of the premise, the novel and I guess the movie too. The premise of this story is that Jesus at the moment of decision, has a vision about walking away and
That's-
going and living his life as a normal Jewish man. He marries Mary Magdalene, who, by the way, wasn't a prostitute.
Yeah.
But he goes and lives this life, and then I probably shouldn't spoil it. You guys should just go watch the
Yeah.
movie, or if you're a reader, read the
Yeah.
novel because it's quite good. And like I said, I think it's the second best Jesus movie ever.
It turns
behind,
out Jesus was dead the whole time. You guys, he had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
But no, not
Yeah,
Dan
that's good.
Brown, please. Let's
Yeah, no.
not. Sorry, Kat.
Dude, Dan, Dan Brown
last
sold
week.
yeah.
so many headaches.
I get triggered. So,
Yeah.
but
Oh.
yeah. Oh yes, right,
Oh.
Nitty. Peter Gabriel
Oh.
did the score for The Last Temptation of Christ. Look at
Okay.
that. He's full
He's
of
on it.
awesome.
He's
he
on
needs
fire,
to be on
yeah.
this panel.
Yeah.
Nitty, why aren't you on the screen right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Nitty's always a pleasure to have on.
Oh, yeah, Nitty's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh,
Well-
Indiana Jones. Sorry.
You guys, go. What?
No, I was just gonna
Shit.
say I went to go see the Dial of Destiny last weekend.
Did you?
With my wife?
Was
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
worth it? Be honest. Was it terrible?
I think it's not terrible. Okay. It's
Okay.
and it's way better. I would say it's way better than the Cosmic Skulls or whatever that terrible one
Yeah,
was.
the Crystal Skull or something.
So yes,
It's pretty
that
low
one.
bar to clear. So, but yeah.
So,
I've
but
never
it's
even seen one.
it's good. I was gonna say it's fine. I mean it's a fun. My wife really liked it. And I thought it was acceptable. But yeah, I mean you just can't. How old Harrison Ford is? Like what? He's like 80 years old. So it's not. It's pretty hard to resurrect the magic of an action figure when you're probably wearing Depends and have to take your heart medication every 4 hours, right? And you need your sleep too. So I thought it was I thought it was pretty good though. All
Mhm.
things
Is it as
considered.
good as The Sound of Freedom? Because
I've been hearing about that movie.
What is that?
It's
don't get me started.
I've just been hearing about it. It's playing here at a little local theater.
It's
in town.
basically a QAnon movie that
The guy who plays Jesus from The Passion
the
is
guy who
Oh
plays-
yeah,
Tim
right.
Caviezel.
he
As
plays
soon
Tim
as I saw
Ballard.
that, I was like, okay, I'm out.
It was like
Now I want to
directed
see
by
this movie.
Yeah, right?
it was directed by Mel Gibson, and yeah, it's
Oh,
Seriously?
sweet.
it was either directed or edited by
Or
yeah.
produced.
Anyway, we
Maybe
could do a
it's
whole
Wait,
episode
I-
on that movie.
Wait, what's it called?
The Sound of Freedom.
The Sound of Freedom.
It beat out Dial of Destiny like in the box office like opening weekend.
No, are you kidding?
Yeah, but that's because like they launched it. They launched it like the 4th of July,
Yeah, yeah.
and
Oh my god.
And they named it The
That's
Sound of
nuts.
Freedom. So
yeah,
Do you-
it's about
Yeah.
it's about child sex trafficking, but like it's
it's
it's a whole rabbit trail of
You
bullshit.
know-
Wow, eh?
You know
Yeah.
Jim Caviezel, or what his name is.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
got struck by lightning like 2 or 3 times
Twice.
on set. Twice
On
on
the cross.
set. of Passion.
Of,
Yeah.
of the
Of
passion.
the Passion, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like, is that a sign or not a sign? Like, is this like what's going on here? Like,
It was a miracle. That's what it
yeah,
was.
but it's like, but what? But it'd
Or-
be a bad miracle.
or
like,
maybe
it's
it
God
fucked him
saying
up.
no. Yeah, yeah. That's why he's like
Oh.
a nut job now.
maybe that's why it's so
He
crazy.
kind of is.
Yeah, yeah.
He kind
Wow.
of is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a whole
Is this
thing.
Livis?
Pardon? Yeah,
Is
we're
this
still
Livis?
live. We're just chatting now.
Wow. Yeah. I was going to say this ended up in a different place than I was expecting.
Jim Caviezel's kind of
But
early
that's cool.
Christianity. He played Jesus.
The passion.
Yeah. That movie was very something else. I remember when I saw it, I cried and cried, and I went home and
Oh,
cried
wow.
and cried and cried. 'Cause
Yeah.
I was like 18 or 19.
Yeah, same.
And
Wait,
then- Yeah.
I remember leaving the theater and like all the other like I was in the youth group and like all the girls like in my youth group were like bawling
I was sobbing.
coming out of this movie.
Uh-huh.
I
And
like,
I just
I like scream no at the TV when I watched
Yeah,
those. Like
well,
when
I saw it
read
in the
about
theater.
later.
and then I went home and had to be alone. And then when I showed
Oh.
my boyfriend, who's now my husband, I was like, "Have you seen The Passion?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Oh, you have to see The Passion." So we watched it, and I was bawling, and he's just watching it like, "This is a really well done Hollywood movie." And I was like, "Why aren't you crying?"
Yeah, see, I watched it and I was like, they whipped him more than 39 times. That was way more than that.
Were you?
They
were
even
you
turned him over and whipped his front. That's not in the
Yeah.
Bible. What
Yeah.
the fuck is going on here? Is Mel
Oh.
Gibson a closet
Mel Gibson
vampire or
loves,
something? Why is he adding
loves,
shit?
loves. Yeah, Mel Gibson
Yeah, I
loves
was
a
all like,
torture
this
scene.
isn't biblical. There's a lot of
Right.
shit happening here that's not in the Bible.
Yeah.
But the
Oh,
way
wow.
I think, look, I respect Mel Gibson a lot as a director. Like he knows his stuff as a director. Like some of the decisions they made were really cool. Like Satan or whatever walking through, like it was a girl, but it was like a shaved head girl, like
Yeah,
walking
you
through
didn't know.
He's like asexual.
Yeah.
walking through
That's
the
true.
the
Whatever
crowds
it is.
looking and stuff, and everything was shot at like 120 frames, so it had this like this idea of like it's like a painting, like you're watching a painting come to life. Like it was there was some cool stuff, but yeah, theologically,
Cinematically,
this
it's not a
did
bad
some
movie.
horrible shit. Yeah. Theologically, not that good.
Oh, I'm such a nerd. When I watched that movie, all I was doing was processing conversational Aramaic.
You know what?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny. Did they do a good job or no?
Well, I mean, I this is the thing, right? Like I don't know because
Oh, okay.
I've never heard an Aramaic speaker speaking Aramaic. I mean, there's very few places you could actually even go. You know, I think in there's a community in like modern day Samaria, and Syriac is like, so the Syrian church they speak Syriac, which is a form of Aramaic, but it's slightly different, right? So but yeah, it was fun to, it was for me, that was it. It was like, oh, it's fun to hear it and to think through, you know, what it sounds like. But yeah. So
Yeah.
and
was
that's yeah. Claude Simeon asked, was the Aramaic good? I would say like it was. Again, in terms of pronunciation, I don't know, but yeah, in terms of diction and syntax, it's pretty solid. Yeah. So
Yeah, I was just watching it. Like you remember the scene where like they nailed his hand in, and like the other hand couldn't reach the hole, so they pulled his arm out of socket.
Oh,
And I was like,
God.
that's not in the Bible. What the fuck is like? You're adding shit for no reason. You don't have to add all this extra
John D
stuff
said,
for no reason. Yeah,
says Mel Gibson is making a Passion 2.
Yeah,
That's what I heard.
I've heard about
What
that.
does that? What does
Like,
that even
it's
mean?
apparently it's going to be like the when he goes down to Hades and
Oh.
witnesses to the
What?
people in Hades and
Are
stuff.
you
Yeah,
Too
yeah,
passion, too
kidding
free,
me?
yeah.
too passion, too furious.
Have you seen the Family Guy one? The Passion 2, crucify this, and like Jesus is like, it's like a Rush Hour 2 thing, and he's like got a gun and he's like running around Chris. Oh no, it's amazing.
Is it a nail gun?
Oh man. So
Yeah, that
I at this point I will make my pitch for The Chosen, which you were talking about it before. I know none of you guys have watched The Chosen.
No.
And you can watch it for free on the internet.
Ooh.
But I think everyone should watch it. Because it is really good. It is a very historically, culturally inaccurate telling of the story of Jesus, and it's pretty astonishing too, because of how much the it looks like it's made, it's a series, a TV series about the life of Jesus, and the makers of it, the evangelical Christians who made it, you can see in places where they have to really lean in hard to some of these apologetic tropes in order to make the story even work. I mean, my favorite one is that within this world, they've basically constructed a world of hyper literate Jews all over Palestine. Everybody can read. Everybody went to school. There's even a scene, I think it's in like the third episode, where there's a whole episode dedicated to Jesus interacting with children. Little creepy, but it at one point he has to leave, and the little girl comes back to where he's like camping out just outside of Capernaum, and she comes out and he's missing, and he's left on like a piece of bark, like a letter. And she picks it up and she looks at it and starts reading it. And the first words in the letter are, "Dear Sarah, I wrote this down because I know you can read." And then continues to, so it just, and they're, everyone's walking around with armloads of papyrus, and Matthew is like
Oh my God.
meticulously writing on his wax tablets what's going on. He's got like a day diary happening here, and
So is
that
it
Like an
worth
ancient
watching for the
clipboard.
humor, or is it
yeah. Is it what?
is it worth watching for like the humor, or is it worth watching
No,
because
I think it's the acting's good. I think the story, because this is the thing, right? Like it's not the gospel story. It is a
Theatrical.
the best way to describe it is it's the story of the disciples, really. It's kind of following them. Jesus is right there in it too, but there are parts of it that I think are actually really beautiful. Like at the very end of the last episode in the last season was Jesus walking on the water, and because they've built it in a series, there's character arcs within the story which are actually really interesting. So like for the whole of season 3, there's this character arc with Peter, and where he's really struggling with a couple of things. I won't get into it, but in the very last episode, Jesus is walking on the water on the Sea of Galilee, and then asks Peter to come out to him, and it's moving. Like it's really emotional. I got teary-eyed watching it. So I put it to my friend Derek Lambert, who runs Myth Vision, when I was talking to him about it. The way I put it to him, I said, as a story, I think it's excellent, but then at the same time, it just further underscores what a fantasy this story actually is, because it's it just completely does not work on every historical cultural level, but like it's a fantastic fantasy story about,
just appreciate it for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you watch it for that, and don't guffaw too loudly about the number of times everyone has to remind you that women, that the testimony of women is not valid in a court of law. It's like, it's like one of these weird things that they have to mention like every third or fourth episode, right? But those sorts of things.
Nice.
Did the spoiler a fake version? Yeah. I just did that. Yeah.
Thank you.
But it's I'd spoiler alert it like I spoiler alert Game of Thrones, right?
Right. Yeah.
There you
Now
go.
I want to watch it, to be honest.
I want to watch Game of Thrones again.
Yeah.
What?
I want to watch Game of Thrones again.
I'm actually thinking of writing like maybe not an academic piece, but something to publish on a blog about just some of the things that I've noticed in this TV series, just because some of them are so interesting in terms of like from a scholarly perspective, sort of looking at this and saying, you can see exactly what the directors and the writers are doing, knowing, like it just, and it just, I don't know. It's kind of wild.
You could even have a separate part on your YouTube channel doing kind of a
that might work too.
That would actually be really cool, more than a blog, because you could like pause it and then just talk about it. I don't know. That would be,
unless I get DMCA'd for that kind of stuff. But yeah,
not the whole episode, but different parts of it too.
Right.
So yeah,
right. There's a plan. Anyways,
I like
check it out. I think it's great.
I will now. All right. Well, this was a lot of fun, and you guys are awesome. So thank you. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add, or where can we find you? I'm sure everyone knows where you are, but just
subscribe to my OnlyFans.
Yes.
I do nude Bible studies
where
on
Ricky
there.
cuts his kids' hair.
Nude Bible studies and children hair cutting. Perfect.
I call it stripping, scripture, and scripture. I just made
I
that up.
love it.
That probably is an OnlyFans account.
That probably is a
I
thing.
bet.
Yeah, I just made that up. That's
Probably
definitely a thing.
is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter and I have a YouTube channel and a Patreon. I just started a new thing.
Mhm.
I've taken a bit of a hiatus from my my Dead Sea Scrolls Unapologetically series, kind of unintentionally, because I've started doing a video series about the so I'm doing a video series about Richard Carrier's handling of Jewish literature in his book on the historicity of Jesus. And it was supposed to be one video, and now it's like 3.
Oh
So,
dear.
Get ready. Get ready.
Yeah.
Watch out. He might make a blog post about you like he did me.
Oh. Well, I would expect as much, right? I mean, I'd be maybe be a little insulted if he didn't.
Mhm.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
So
And
That's exciting.
David?
So you can find me over at youtube.com/@deepdrinks. I don't know why my brain just froze then. We had Paula Gia
You're not
on a
even
couple of days ago.
drinking.
No, I know. I had Paula Gia on yesterday. It was really awesome, and Kipp's been on. Kipp's coming on again. Captain Dadpool's been on. Stacey, you've been on. Everyone's been on. But we're doing some really cool stuff. And coming up in a couple of days, we have the Transatlantic Queen, Arden Hart, coming on.
Fun.
So that'll be really cool.
Oh, I can't wait for that one. Awesome.
Hmm.
Yay. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I just want to say a quick thank you to our patrons, Sydney Davis Jr., Eric Ozels, Tara S., Ryan, Deneen Murphy, Dandy, Michael Wiseman, Kathy Cotton, Cindy Plaza, Sunny Shell, Aaron Colson, Phil Calderon, and Jamie West. If we keep getting any more, we're going to have to just run a little banner at the end of the show. But subscribe.
Good problem to have.
Yes, it is a good problem. So subscribe so we can run a little credits. And don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven, Secular Soapbox on Wednesdays. Thursdays, we have the Sunny Spot. Saturday is the Global Atheists and Women Atheists Unload. And then Sunday nights, we have Let's Talk, which is a call-in show. So, so thank you guys.
What show is this? Is this Skeptic
Secular? This is Secular Soapbox on Wednesday night.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Is it Wednesday?
It's Wednesday.
Yeah, you're right. It is.
It is.
Okay. Yeah.
They all blend together for me.
Are you having the wine now?
No. Yeah, that's it. let's blame it on. Let's blame it on that.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I'm an alcoholic, you guys.
Right. Awesome.
That's
Okay.
why.
Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you to everyone in the chat. It's always awesome to have such great interactions and questions. So, I think that's it. So thank you guys so much for being here, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye, chat.
Bye.